down on a million now. Have to go around the world, make shillings now. If my head in the clouds, fall down on a million now. Have to go around, I ain't sitting down till I got it figured out. Focus on.
Well, hello, and welcome back to My Indigo Mind. I am your host, Tashana. Nice to meet you. Well, honey, today we got a little bit of a treat because I ran across this video and began to watch. And I'm thinking myself saying, and I'm like, you know what? My girlies and my guys will probably like to see this. So, today I'm going to be giving a little bit of commentary and some reaction to this video. Okay, we have the pleasure of reviewing Miss Khadija Mbowe. Please run on over there, honey, and subscribe because the girl be dropping gems, okay? And I love listening to her, and she's super duper funny. So let's get right into this video.
Prologue: The Tale of Narcissus and Echo, as interpreted by Terence Real. Narcissus, a cold-hearted, beautiful youth, falls in love with no one, though many are entranced by him.
Right.
The great goddess Hera hears the complaints of her love-struck nymphs and decides to punish the young man for his pride. One day, while out hunting, Narcissus stumbles upon an enchanted well, where he gazes upon the most seductive face he's ever laid eyes on. Each time he grasps for it, the beautiful image dissolves. Unable to sleep, eat, or withdraw, he pines, frozen to the spot, until he dies of thirst and hunger. Narcissus is an emblem of disconnection. He stands rooted over the well, not because he has too much self-love, but because he has far too little. It is not his self he is bewitched by, but his image. Narcissus at the well stands for any man more in love with his accolades, his performance, his stock options, than his own being. Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Khadija, your favorite internet play auntie. Hello to all my returning nieces, nephews, and nibblings. If you're new, feel free to take a look around. Yes, the vibe. Okay, now I just want to say, before we start this, that I need y'all to come at this video with as open a mind as possible. I am not caping for incels. I'm not making excuses for bad male behavior. I have spent a good part of my life being around cis, straight, and gay men. I mean, apart from being related to them and being friends with them, I, too, for a time, was fully heterosexual. Weird. I've seen lots of different kinds of men and lots of different sides of them, as I'm sure you have. I've been hurt by them emotionally, physically. I've been frustrated by them.
Right.
I've been disappointed by them. They've gotten on my damn nerves.
Period.
I felt a lot of things towards them, as you'll see, and so do the authors that I'm going to talk about in a couple of these books. And me and these authors and I and these authors, I only have half an English degree. What do you want from me? The thing we all have in common is that we want to see men change and see everyone else allow men to change. We want there to be a reconciliation between all genders, one where we invite men in from the cold, emotionless tundras of their psyches and ask them to feel with us. So, with all that out of the way, sit down because I want to tell you a story. Though. Right. Are you comfortable?
Let's get into it.
So about 9 months ago, I hung out on maybe 4 separate occasions with this dude that I had a brief love affair type connection type thing with. And, I mean, the first date was like 4 hours of chat, no small talk, walking home in the snow, and a really nice first kiss. It was cute. He was a very active listener, and we could talk about anything. It was kind of like knowing someone for a while. He stimulated me intellectually, and more importantly, he was just as, if not more, curious than myself. Now you're probably wondering.
It's actually nice to her point to um meet a man that is in touch with that side of himself. You know what I'm saying? Being able to still feel like a man while still fulfilling his woman's or women's needs. Um, that's called balance. And not a lot of men have that. Okay? Let's continue.
Well, Khadija, if the guy was so great, why did you stop seeing him? To be honest, I wasn't actually sure what I wanted, which is kind of a cop-out way of me saying that I think I liked him more than he liked me and got embarrassed. So I just stopped talking to him and blocked him on Instagram. But one night before the blockation, we were hanging out after we had gone to the park. We were having one of our many philosophical conversations and ended up on the topic of men. As we lay there, we began to talk about his curiosity with why men suffered so much. Now, feminist fist bumping me gave him a bit of a side eye because, go what? But he continued. He talked about how men experience more violence than women, about how men suffer from mental illnesses at alarming rates, about how men across racial and ethnic lines experience higher rates of murders, especially by strangers. And as all of this was happening, I was horrified. I lay there thinking, did I just go to the park multiple times with a men's rights activist? Has he been this way the whole time? Khadija, this is why you wait till you're married to go to the park. But I dared not say those things out loud. I let him continue to go on and on about the plight of men, all the while feeling the rage from my female ancestors telling me to kick this colonizer out of my bed. I mean, off my park bench.
You're right. You know what I'm talking about.
In the days after that conversation, some weird haze fell over me. I just kept wondering about men's rights. That's a lie. I have a Scorpio moon, so the only thing on my mind. I wanted to pay him back for making me sit through 10 minutes of him talking about how much men suffer. I wanted more than anything to prove him wrong. So I went to the internet and started Googling stats about male violence and comparing them to those of especially black women. And to my dismay, some of the information he said was right. I couldn't believe it. Men were more likely to suffer from violent assault, more likely to be murdered by a stranger, and on it went.
Wow.
So then I started to wonder, what the heck is up with men?
Pigs and sexist, and they exhibit toxic masculinity, that's a hilarious expression, because you need to thank toxic masculinity for all the bridges, all the jets, all the rockets, all this toxic masculinity.
Now, we hear this term all the time, but what exactly does it mean? I found a lot of definitions, but the one or ones that I seem to have settled upon is that it's actually just a set of behaviors or beliefs that include, but are not limited to, suppressing one's emotions, masking distress, maintaining an appearance of hardness, and violence as an indicator of power. Now, funny enough, this term was actually coined by the mythopoetic men's movement of the 80s and 90s as a reaction to second-wave feminism. Men were fighting back against this belief that society was trying to feminize young boys, but also that...
So I'm taking from it that men have been throughout history told, be hard, don't be soft, and that's girly, and all of the things mothers, society, other men tell men when they exert any type of feeling or anything like that. So I'm getting from this that it's overdone in an attempt to feel more masculine, especially for those men raised by women.
That society was trying to hypermasculate them. So this is actually a list of behaviors considered to be toxic to masculinity, written by one of the leaders of the mythopoetic men's movement, Shepherd Bliss. But we'll talk more about that movement in a little bit. Needless to say, toxic masculinity in general is masculinity at its ugliest. masculinity gone awry. It's like the Enneagram that lets you know what you are when you're at your worst, like what number you are when you're
Right.
Toxic masculinity is the yang, is the hand, is manhood, but at its worst.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, these behaviors are immature and don't allow for
overdone,
connections and all the things.
extra.
But I feel that for a while,
doing
just
too
kind of
much.
thrown the words toxic masculinity around,
right,
without understanding that it's actually a symptom of a much larger disease,
which a lot of people do.
Patriarchy.
I intend to make my own way in the world.
Oh, well, no one makes their own way. Not really. Least of all a woman. You'll need to marry well.
Now, patriarchy is a social system in which men hold the power. I'll explain why I'm using air quotes later as well. It's a system in which men use this power to dominate in roles of political leadership, moral authority, and social privileges.
There's also so many small things that women have to put up with every day that we don't even realize. They're called microaggressions.
Is that true?
At least that's what Wikipedia told me.
Right.
But as family therapist and author Terrence Real describes it in his book, How Can I Get Through to You? Patriarchy can be divided into two categories.
Great
Political
read.
patriarchy and psychological patriarchy. Political patriarchy fits the above definition the best. It's the outward sexism that has been the focus of a lot of feminist writing. In white America, white women on average make 82 cents to every white man's dollar, with that wage gap increasing depending on your race/ethnicity. Canada, you ain't exempt from this either.
Period.
Political patriarchy, it's men leading the helm in the multi-billion-dollar beauty industry directed at women. It's Kamala Harris being the first woman to become vice president 100 years after women
spoke about it.
And it's like well over 200 years that America has been a democracy.
Right.
It's bullshit. But you know what's actually
malarkey,
scarier?
Shenanigans even.
Psychological patriarchy resides in the mind, which to me is why it's more dangerous. It's less obvious, less outwardly manipulative. It's not physical abuse, but it don't feel right. As Real describes it, psychological patriarchy is a dynamic of qualities being masculine or feminine, where half our human traits are exalted, while the other half are devalued. Guess which traits are devalued? Guess. Just guess. Just take a guess. Any traits seen as feminine or feminine-leaning are immediately mocked out of young boys and men by all of us. Real talks about how we teach young boys and girls in complementary ways to bury themselves. In young girls,
I agree. I have to say that in this instance, we do this as parents. We do this as teachers. We do this as, authority figures, period. That nice, nasty that everyone speaks on. I feel like you telling a boy that, stop doing that. Or boys don't cry. Or, being all extra masculine is the way to go. Meanwhile, not realizing someday this boy will be a dad. Someday this boy will be a man and be someone's husband. You have to realize that they need to know balance. That yes, you can be masculine, but be in touch with your feelings enough to be a good man to your wife, your girlfriend, your mom, your sisters, the women around you, and not be toxic. That's where that word toxic masculinity comes from, because you're overly masculine. You're just always extra in the man field, and it's like, okay, I know you're a man. You don't have to do all of that. But I completely understand where she's coming from. Let's continue.
girls, we teach complacency and deference. In young boys, we teach what's a well, let's get into some factors.
As
Right.
boys got older, they began to tell a very different story. So they really articulate the bizarre expectations we have of boys as they get older, that they should disconnect from their innate emotional acuity, their emotional sensitivity, in order to become a man.
Everyone goes through different things during middle adolescence. But for young boys, that's typically the age they stop talking to each other,
Right.
specifically about their feelings. According to the actual experts, young boys stop opening up and as a result have no place to turn to with all of the emotions. I'm actually going to link a video below with a developmental psychologist called Niobe Way because I think that gives more in-depth explanation. And, you know, she went to school for this shit. I didn't.
Right.
I've been studying social emotional development for about almost 30 years, interviewing boys about their relationships, their friendships, the kinds of things that are important to them. As a developmentalist, I follow them over time. Middle adolescence, early middle adolescence, they tell you about a lot of love that they have for their friendships. They're very, very clear about their desire for emotionally intimate male friendships.
Remember the mythopoetic men's movement I was talking about before? This was used as a way to get men together and to get men talking. According to Robert Bly, author of Iron John, a book about men, the theory goes that men never learned about how to be men because after the Industrial Revolution, their fathers weren't around to teach them.
I
And
can
their
see
well-meaning
that.
mothers did the best they could, but a woman can't teach you about being a man because she's a woman.
No,
So
no,
in the 80s
I don't
and
agree.
90s, you had men paying like $75 or more to go on these retreats to connect back to their manhood with other men. Think an all-boys retreat focused on spiritual connections with natural manhood, drum circles, mythological storytelling, and you. Lots of you. Before I sound like I'm hating on it, I am all for men connecting to their spirituality, but this male-centered, male-dominated movement is missing some things in my opinion.
Yeah.
Firstly, in saying that women can't raise men to be men, it lets women off the hook for our own contributions.
My sentiments, exactly.
That we're incapable of raising problematic sons when all of us are capable of doing that because we all live in this world. Secondly, this movement generalizes all male experiences as being one indistinguishable journey when that simply isn't true. In my eyes, the mythopoetic men's movement is to men's liberation as the white feminist movement is to all feminism.
Indeed.
An exclusionary brand of
Indeed.
secretly propped up through capitalism.
Indubitably.
Now, before one of y'all tries it with me, when I said white feminist movement, I'm talking about white feminism, not
Who wouldn't get that?
white
You know what?
feminist. Because in my eyes, and the view of a lot of other feminists that I have read, white feminism is more about gaining the same sort of political and economical power that men have had and being dominators as well.
And less about inclusivity.
Of all the
Absolutely.
on a social, political,
yes,
whatever archaeological senses. Okay? So don't come at me. And also, if it don't apply, let it fly. Damn, girl.
Yes, yes, and yes, and yes. Absolutely, I agree 100%. Okay, which is why I don't call myself a feminist. I am a womanist. Okay. So yeah, there's that. So I agree 100%. You hit the nail right on the head, honey.
I mean, the retreats those men went on were more for middle-class men with disposable income. If you had 75 or more bucks, you too could go beat on some drums and cry in the forest with your dude bros. If not, too bad. Looks like you'll never get out of the clutches of toxic masculinity, and therefore patriarchy as a whole should have made more money, dummy. Sorry. When I talk about the patriarchy, I just get riled up. Sorry.
You're out of your damn mind. Walking in here looking like a little bitch.
Lucius, no! Lucius! Okay, I don't want to be on the let's blame our parents for everything bandwagon, but let's quickly talk about maternal sadism and then I'll calm down. In The Will to Change, Men, Masculinity, and Love, feminist writer and Beyonce enemy Bell Hooks.
I see a part of Beyonce that is in fact anti-feminist, that is assaulting, that is a terrorist, in the sense of, especially in terms of the impact on young girls.
I don't know if they're still beefing. They're probably not beefing anymore. Remember when they were beefing? Well, they weren't. Beyonce doesn't beef with anyone. She's perfect. In a chapter on male violence, Hooks talks about how women can be just as violent as men to weaker groups of people, i.e. other women, people with disabilities, old people, and children. They do this through a lot of different ways, but a big way that she talks about it is the fact that mothers stop supporting their boys. They stop protecting them emotionally in a way and rely on them to become men at early.
Which is the part where I wanted you guys to see, because she gets into basically women stopping the support of their boys, feeling like, oh, you're the man of the house now. You're at a certain age where you should be helping me. You know what I'm saying? I feel like a lot of the time you don't let them continue to grow into their manhood. You don't nurture them in the way they should be nurtured. Which is why I believe so much in the two-parent household. I feel like there should be a balance. You know what I mean? The mother should be able to show the father too, but the mother, the constant support, the giving, the being there, and the dad, the more tough love, but being able to show that side of him when his son needs it. You get what I'm saying? So I feel like the two-parent home is the best way. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you have a problem with that, I mean, well, that's just your problem. But that's how I feel. You know what I'm saying? So let's get right into, her point and where she's going.
Early ages, and she calls this more emotional violence than physical.
Right.
But then you have our fathers.
You say he had to whoop my ass so I wouldn't be soft. That's not the real part. The part is, I told myself because he cared about me.
Fathers perpetuate this ideal of manhood in their very actions, and more specifically, in their silence. As young children, we're meant to passively accept the lack of communication from our fathers, as Hook says, and not speak the truth of what's happening around us, not speak the truth about that patriarchy. Our mothers will also take on this silence and maybe at times bring it to their children. And there is a real quote, not a real quote, a quote from Terrence Real, where he basically says a mother will be like, here is all of my pain and shame. Keep it between us.
Absolutely.
All of us being silent.
Absolutely.
But anyway,
absolutely.
So, we're doomed no matter what gender we identify as, just because parents are human beings and they make mistakes. But boys, Lord, I'm sorry, y'all.
Really?
And again, I'm not trying to contribute to the system of hating on your parents because, they're human beings, like I said, and after 2 years of therapy, I've come to see them as real people. They grew up in a system of patriarchy just like the rest of us, so it only makes sense that they would be part of the problem. The next problem.
Absolutely. And all too often, I think as people, we forget, especially as grown-ups ourselves, that our parents were once our ages, were once younger parents, were once growing up in the same, if not worse, system than we have now. You have to realize that these are people too, and not just your parents. People make mistakes. So in turn, that means parents make mistakes. You have to realize the only thing that I have an issue with is when that mistake's called out as a parent. It's not then taken seriously or changed. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm okay on the apologies. You know what I'm saying? You know how you can apologize to me? Change behaviors. Period.
Of teaching men to perform their manhood. That's fun. I have no cute segue. Let's just go to the next one.
I'm not ashamed of who I am. but it bothers me that I'm that way. I got an image of something that's just totally not what that is not about. I'm such a contradiction and lie to myself. Why am I that way? Both a contradiction and a lie, whatever manlyhood is.
This says deepening, and I meant to put depending. Okay. Depending on how you were raised, your parents probably wanted you to be protected and to fit in. And what better way to fit in the world than being the best kind of man you can be? Things like toughen up, man up, boys don't cry, why are you wearing your mother's heels? You know, all of those are sayings that inform how our nieces, nephews, and nibblings deal with men, and how men, in turn, deal with themselves. So, based off all the things we've talked about so far, it seems that young boys feel like they might have to act a certain way to be taken seriously as a man or even seen as a man. And that way they have to act is the direct antithesis of anything associated with young girls.
Mm-hmm.
See why we hate teenage girls so much.
The teenage girls in this generation have an absolute shitty taste in music.
And because of this, you get this one up, one down paradigm of male identity. It's a performance, an act on how they believe they should be as men, because we all told them that's the way they have to do things. In Bell Hook's book, she talks about how men know that deep down this is a performance. It's a lie, and part of their anger is that they don't know how to break out of it. So they express themselves in the only two emotions we allow men to have. Anger.
You don't want to fight me, Tristan? Why not? I'll kill you, idiots!
Or indifference.
Oh, that makes you happy. I do backflips, but I am way too cool.
On that note, it's time for a quote. So these are mixtures from some of my favorite quotes from the book by Terrence Real, How Can I Get Through to You? I don't have a physical copy with me, but I'll just put it up here. Men are not raised to be intimate. They are raised to be competitive performers. Traditional socialization teaches young boys to filter their sense of self-worth through performance. The paradox for boys is that in order to be worthy of connection, they must prove themselves invulnerable, button-down warriors in the world's emotional marketplace. In the world of boys and men, you're either a winner or a loser, one up or one down, in control or controlled, man enough or a girl. Where in this setup is the capacity for love?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, scalp me. Bo. Speaking of love.
Oh, that is
For
so
an entire
true.
year, nothing I did could snap you out of what you were going through. You didn't want to talk. You didn't want to go out. You didn't want to have sex. You didn't want me, Lawrence.
It's not that I didn't want you. I just, watching you get up and go to work was this daily reminder that I had nowhere to go, nothing to do.
Why didn't you tell me that?
Just couldn't.
Now, when we have romantic partners, we put a lot of stock in the idea that they're going to heal the wounds our parents left us with. And if you don't feel that way, good for you. But the rest of us codependent ass bitches are working through some things, okay? When you go back to parents abandoning young boys emotionally and young boys not being able to speak to each other or anyone else in a truly vulnerable way, and then layer on the performance of manhood, good Lord! Can anyone attracted to men get to know them? Seriously, romantic partners are sort of like mirrors for a lot of us. That intensity of love and connection brings up way too many raw emotions for anyone to act like it's not happening. You could act like it's not happening. I've seen people do it. But being a man, and dudes, please let me know this, how difficult must it be making deeper romantic connections when you feel like you're not supposed to be that way or be vulnerable or talk intimately, because that's not what men do, even though that's what humans need. What a conundrum. Ugh, and Tyson was right. And lady partners, we gotta talk. Because Bell Hooks calls us out. In the times that I have dated men, again, even up until this year, I was telling myself, well, I wasn't straight, but I was telling myself, absurd. Anyway, when I have dated men, I would be so frustrated that they wouldn't just tell me what they were feeling, that they wouldn't just open up. And I was justified in being annoyed. I mean, Terrence Real's book is called How Can I Get Through to You? But I would get into these fights with my romantic partners, and they would be teetering on the edge of opening up, but I'd get so frustrated and cry, and then they'd abandon whatever emotional barriers they were getting ready to jump over and come tend to my emotional ass, sensitive ass, Taurus ass needs. Or when we'd have conversations over and over again, by the time they actually started opening up, I would break up with them a few weeks later. Now, I did feel a little bad, but not bad enough to have stayed with them because there was only so much I could do to break through that shell. And glimpses of emotional connection weren't and are not enough for me. I have more patience now than I did back then, but I also don't even bother.
I'm going to stop it right here. Because basically that's what I wanted to come and talk to you guys about. I feel like boys they're automatically supposed to be the strength. They're supposed to be the man in the situation, and I think in doing that to them, it really leaves no room for openness, and it leaves no room for getting in touch with his feelings. No room for that, because if you're constantly telling him, "Oh, be a man up," anything feminine is girly, that's gay. You cannot do that and then expect a well-rounded man. It's just not going to happen. Get in the practice of telling our boys when they fall down and they hurt themselves, "Hey, you okay?" Still kissing the boo-boo and saying, "It'll heal, you'll be fine." Giving that love and that toughness, but backing it with a little affection. Not putting them in roles that they are not ready for. Not putting them in roles that they weren't meant to play yet. The little boy and the man's role. That's not okay. Your son is not your man. Making him do things that a man should be doing, or you should be out looking for in a man. That is not your son's job, sis. Okay? So like I said, please like, comment, and subscribe. Okay? And go on over there to my girl Khadija Mbowe. I love her. I love her point of view. She has so many wonderful things over there on her. So go ahead over and search. Why can't I say this right now? What's happening? So go ahead on over there and search through her things, and I'm guaranteeing you will find something you love. Okay? So, later for now. Bye.
Down on a million now, had to go